Good evening. I'd like to call the January 21st, 2026 meeting of the Bay City Planning Commission to order. Attending tonight, we have Dennis Bonacek, Whitney Anderson, Ashley Meyer, Sheila Turbot, Mike Myers, Mike Burns, you're not, myself, Douglas Rise, staff, Terry Multane, Lisa Griffiths. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Tonight we have two cases on our agenda. SU 2601 special use for 500 Salzburg Avenue and case SPR 2601 site plan review for 2880 Wilder Road. Before we do that, like a motion for approval of the minutes from our last meeting on December 17th, 2025.
I have a correction. Know if how this would go. I was informed the commission the previous meeting that I wouldn't be here. So technically, it should be excused versus absent.
Where was that specifically in the minutes, Ashley?
When it states attendance and it says excused, none, absent, and then lists me there.
Are you good with that, Lisa?
I make a motion we approve the minutes from December 17 with the exception of Ashley Meyer being excused.
I have a motion by Turbot for approval. Do I have a second?
Support.
A support from Dennis Bonacek. Any other comments, issues? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. This is a period on the agenda now for public comment. Anyone from the public who wishes to comment on any issue not on our agenda tonight, please come forward to the podium, state your name, sign our register, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, we will move on in the agenda to our first new business item. This is case SU 2601, special use for 500 Salzburg Avenue in the 7th Ward. Neil Spencer is requesting special use approval and site plan review for the construction of an off-street parking area. The lot contains split zoning that includes R1 single-family residential with 60 feet in width on South Chilson Street and C2A general business being 120 feet in depth on Salzburg Avenue. Proposed off-street parking area will be created in the R1 zoning district. Section 122-102, permitted uses and structures of the City Code of Ordinances permits parking for non-residential uses located in adjoining residential zoning districts with special use approval by the Planning Commission. Staff report? That's right, thank you. This is a special use, will require a public hearing, so I would entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
Make a motion, we go into public hearing to discuss. Support.
Motion by Commissioner Bonacek and support by Commissioner Burns. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We are in public hearing.
All right, so 500 Salzburg, it's an existing three-story brick building. I'm sure you've seen it traveling down Salzburg over several decades. It's been vacant, and a new owner would like to put multiple family on the upper two floors, and then on the ground floor, maintain the commercial element of it. The property, the building itself is zoned C2A, which in C2A, there is an exemption as far as requirements for off-street parking based on the use. So this would be a parking lot being created not to meet a specific standard, but just to provide some relief to the parking that would be generated by the multiple family use. Let's see. I did get all the comments back, except for I noticed late I did not receive the engineering comment. So I still do have to follow up with her. That might be a point later on in the meeting as we're discussing the drives. I would state right now that in either case, a permit would be required if any work is being done to any of those drives. But it is important that we get her feedback, and if there is conditions at the end, I guess I would have to include her comments. Other than that, that's all I have. If Mr. Spencer would like to come forward and his team, and if there's any questions, he'll be happy to answer.
Good afternoon. My name is Neil Spencer.
Could you make sure that you speak directly into the microphone? We are recording the proceedings, and it's important that we get a good pickup.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Neil Spencer. I am one of the new owners of the 500 Salzburg property. It's a joint venture between me and another Bay City business owner. The intention, as Terry stated, is apartments on the top two floors, commercial space on the downstairs to meet the zoning that's currently already there. Somehow this parcel is split zoned, and I'm kind of trying to correct that by being here tonight to make it through the special use plan to put in the proper parking, even though it's not required for my use that I have currently, to kind of benefit the building and benefit the neighborhood by cleaning up the zoning that we've got now. I guess, does the board have any questions for me?
Any member of the commission have questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions. In looking at the arrangement for the parking and the fact that there's a gravel drive on the west side of the building, I would like to see that drive not be used.
I don't disagree with you. The business adjacent to the west, the vacuum salesman, I know he uses that to access the parking at the rear as well as kind of driving through my current lot there. The intention is for that to not be a driveway, not be advertised as one and not be used as one. Obviously, I can't.
Currently, you can shoot all the way from Chilson to Warner behind the buildings.
Correct.
So what I would be looking at in terms of our approval is that you put a fence up on the west side of the property from the northwest corner all the way down to the corner of the building, and then erect another fence out and connecting the fronts of the buildings. That way, it's a guarantee that nobody's going to be using those areas. That eliminates congestion on Salzburg, less rear-end accidents, and it keeps traffic from just going willy-nilly through there.
So part of my kind of mission with the whole deal is be neighborly. Currently, right now, between the wedding days and the vacuum guy, if I limit the access back through there, I'm kind of landlocking those guys for their parking that they have. So I guess I'd be interested in seeing if there's some type of ordinance that requires that fence to block that alleyway, or if that's more just a want more than a need.
We are allowed to make anything as part of a condition for a special approval. So if the rest of the members agree with me, that would be what I'd be seeking. Sure. So you understand.
Yeah, I understand. Like I said, I'm just, to limit the park or the access to there based on potential traffic issues, I think is, I don't know, I think that's a bit of a reach to limit the access into my property based on potential traffic issues. I guess that'd be up to the city to develop a study as to why that curb cut was allowed in the first place, rather than backpedaling now that there's a new owner putting money into the place.
That stretch of Salzburg is actually under the auspices of the Michigan Department of Transportation.
Right.
The city would not create a study for that. You'd have to do the study yourself. But in terms of what we've experienced and what we understand in this area, forcing traffic onto Chilson to get into your parking lot is not that big of an ask.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying I'm struggling to see why I need to put a fence up to block an access for my neighbors.
I have a question related, and this is just for clarification because I'm not familiar with that adjoining property. So as it stands now, they use that space that you're proposing as gravel as their primary and only access to the back of their building?
Correct. Not only that, they're kind of using it for intermediate parking to get in and out of the vacuum place. I haven't spent a ton of time in my new building yet. It's vacant. There's no heat, there's no power or anything right now. But in the time that I have been there, they use that kind of as a off-street parking space because there's very limited off-street parking there to begin with.
Do they have parking in the rear of the building?
Yeah, so if you go to page 7 of my plans, it shows it a little bit more clear. That kind of rectangle shape that comes out of the back of the building, I believe that's a concrete slab, but the rest of that area back there is all open parking.
So hypothetically, if there was not a fence there, your parking lot would potentially butt up to their parking lot, correct?
Correct.
Dennis, if there was no gravel driveway between, as you're so preferring, but the parking lots could be accessed, you know what I'm saying? If there was cross-traffic in the back versus a fence, you know what I'm saying? Would that be acceptable?
I'm not really happy with the cross-traffic. That's the issue I have. I would think that Mr. Spencer would want to put the fence up just to keep people from accessing the other properties by going through his parking lot.
And I hear what you're saying, but I think what he's saying is that he's would prefer to be a good neighbor and not block his neighbor from having no access to his back parking lot. So is there a
If
middle
I'm
ground
not
here?
mistaken, he's got access on the west side of his property. West side of his building is a driveway as well.
So wouldn't we be going to him to put a fence up as well? I mean, in the same breath? I'll put the fence up. It makes no difference, I suppose, but I guess struggling to see the justification behind putting the fence up.
Well, let me add a couple of comments myself. The required screening, as I mentioned in the staff report, is going to be on the west where the two residential properties are. There's a choice of either doing a 5-foot green belt or a fence. So he will have to have a fence constructed as a screening requirement based in the zoning ordinance of those two properties that say duplex. Then you get to the commercial property, and I do see that, yeah, there is access. Now, because all the access was being provided off of Chilson, I can state for the record that I did not send this to MDOT, thinking that the access would, change in any way of still using that. I thought it was just kind of there, but it dead ends at the parking lot, and I didn't see enough space. Well, I guess there could be enough space to cut over, but I viewed that as just empty space because MDOT did not, get a review. Now, they did just rebuild Salzburg not too many years back. For whatever reason, they did still allow whatever access is there, which is on that property directly to the west, still does have, their drive as it is utilized on that one. So just want to state that, officially, the two properties would have to have screening in them because a 5-foot green belt isn't provided, but it is still part of the parking lot. Then I either have to have the 5-foot go down south to the edge of that parking, or there needs to be a 5-foot green belt that is separating that.
So between the residential parcels and my proposed parking, I'm planning to do screening. So even at the north end of the property line that's currently shown as the 5-foot setback, I've talked with my civil engineer, and based on the comments that you sent back to me last week, Terry, I'm planning to put that fence along that north lot line to meet your screening requirement. Same thing with the west lot line that abuts up to the two residential properties to my west. I just haven't got you the revised stuff yet. I just sent that off Monday to him.
So that would be a revision to that.
So for my clarification, then, the area you show as gravel is your property, but you're only going to provide the graveling for your neighbor's convenience for access to the rear of his property?
I mean, that's kind of the intent. I mean, another potential issue that I'm having with a comment that Terry had for me is the dumpster being 10 foot off the property lines either direction. If I move that dumpster 10 feet to the east and about 5 feet-ish to the south to meet that requirement, I'm really going to be limiting the ability to get a garbage truck in there to empty a dumpster. I have about 25 feet between parking rows right now and about 25 feet at the west end of the parking. So to get that dump truck through my parking lot and lined up with that dumpster corral, that 5 feet kind of makes a big difference. So another potential thing I had was using that alleyway as a direct drive for the trash truck to come in, make a small backup, and then turn right and go exit through Chilson, if that makes sense. If I limit that driveway, I'm then having a dump truck come in weekly and make about 4 3-point turns to enter and exit that parking lot.
See, and part of my solution that was going to come back to you was right in that corner is where possibly I was going to propose the dumpster. So where it says proposed concrete, if I'm reading that right, it would be somewhere in there where it would be 10 foot off the west. It's just a matter of the other setback would be near the building. But then I see why that's right where that drive is. But that would be an alternative location. Then a truck would come straight in, hit the dumpster, and then just back straight out.
And the intent is to not have them back on the Salzburg by any means. It'd be back up 25 feet, hang a hard right turn, and exit through Chilson.
Yeah, my scenario would have them come in off Chilson, go straight in, and then straight back into the north a little bit to get out. Or just circle around. Would there be enough space to have the dumpster?
There is currently. I mean, the more we move that dumpster to the east and to the south, the harder that becomes, but I think it's still achievable by doing so. I'm going to lose a parking space out of the deal. But.
Yeah, the only thing about a dumpster is until we, change or, right now it's set at 10 feet. That has been sometimes a problem on some site plans, but my only alternative, if there can't be a solution found, is that we have to take it to the Zoning Board of Appeals and try to get a variance from the setbacks of a dumpster. But that's my only alternative as far as the zoning ordinance, unless we can somehow find a place to place that dumpster.
And like I said, I can meet the 10-foot setback either direction. That's not an issue. I just haven't got you the revisions yet, I suppose.
Question regarding the facility itself, the building.
Yep.
I drove by the site today. On the east elevation of the building itself, there's a separate structure that's been built and added directly to the building.
So at one time, I'm thinking the city or the building inspector, somebody came in and asked for a secondary egress for fire escape. So that sided structure off to the east is a stairwell that's falling apart. The intent is to tear that down and get a secondary egress within the footprint of the 75 by 75 building.
All right. I suspected that that might be the case because I couldn't see another use for something skinny and tall like that except for a stair tower.
It's falling in on itself right now. The birds really like it more than anybody, so.
So it's a good thing it's going away. Good.
And because you mentioned that, I don't believe the site plan is actually showing the staircase, but when you get to the building plan review, or did I miss something on one of the other details, but wouldn't there be access, exterior access requirements for fire safety?
So on sheet 2, there is an existing conditions page that shows the existing stairwell. I believe it calls it out to be demolished, but when we get into plan review for architectural and structural drawings and everything, the 2 stairwells are gonna come in off the north and south side of the building. Currently, there's like an atrium through the center of that building that looks from the ground floor all the way up to the roof of the building. Right about there will be the secondary stairwell.
I had to search a little bit to find where the number of units, your dwelling units, was listed. I did find it on the site plan sheet. Those 12 units, do you know approximately how big those are?
About 25 by, so there's 2-bedroom, 2-bath units, and there's 1-bedroom, 1-bath units. I have 4 2-bedroom, 2-bath units per floor and 2 1-bedroom, 1-bath units per floor. The 2-bedroom, 2-baths are about 25 by 25 feet. The single bed, single bath units are right around 18 by 25 or so. They're just slightly smaller, but not enough room to get a second bedroom in. I don't know that math off the top of my head.
In looking at the site plan, the parking calculations call for 22 spaces for the multifamily, and yet you've only got 20 spaces shown.
So this is zone C2A. As Terry and I have talked about multiple times, this district that I'm in doesn't require any parking requirements. So I'm providing this parking in this parking lot as a kindness to my residents rather than just saying park on the street, see you later. I'm exceeding the requirements of the zoning.
So yes, in this zoning district, the calculations for the C2A do not have to be done because that zoning district is exempt. That's the way the current code zoning ordinance does read.
And if I could shoehorn another spot into that parking lot, I would.
I was just curious if we need to make a variance for the parking as well, and in this case, I guess we don't. Okay, thank you.
So just for clarification, Terry, because this is another commercial property, a fence is, according to current code, the fence on the west side is not required, is it?
Not where well, let me think here. Adjacent to any parking lot, you either have to have a 5-foot green belt or a fence. So I guess in this particular, where exactly is the parking lot? Well, the parking lot would be that paved area, including the drives. So then that's where either the fence or the 5-foot comes into play for both the residential and I guess the commercial too. You would be required to do the 5-foot or the fence, because it is still part of that parking lot, which in the landscape regulations, it has a separate section for parking, and then that's where it explains about the 5-foot green belt, and then, so it would still be an option of one of the two. The only other way maybe around it is have a discussion about collective off-street parking and take a look at, I could get the ordinance and read that section and see if that has any meaning to this discussion, which I could do. Because now, if what they're describing is a collective off-street, maybe we should get the rules and see how that applies. So I'll be right back. You can continue your discussion.
How much work is actually going to be involved in the interior remodeling work on the dwelling units in the commercial space?
Extensive work. The building currently holds water on the roof. It has a adequate enough roof to get us through this winter, but it's due for a roof next year. The entire interior of the building needs to strip out and basically start fresh. As I mentioned before, there's a pretty cool atrium through the center of the building. I'd like to leave it, but by leaving an atrium in the center of the building, it's basically a fire flume. So my architects recommend to fill it in, add square footage to each floor, and eliminate the possibility of a fire chimney running through the whole place, 25 feet wide. So it's a pretty extensive demolition process to start, and then a full overhaul of the interior. The intention is to keep the pretty cool facade that the building has now. The brick is all in pretty good shape. There's a couple areas of decay. It needs windows the whole way around. It needs doors pretty much the whole way around. As far as interior goes, it's going to be a blank slate. The exterior is basically a refurbish.
Okay, I'll jump in to address the issue about the access. Here it is called access to off-street parking areas. Each off-street parking space in a parking area shall open directly onto a clearly defined, I gotta get the next one. Collective use of off-street parking. Off-street parking for separate buildings or uses may be provided collectively subject to the following. The total number of parking spaces provided collectively shall not be less than the sum. And then it says in which cases, if there's some overlap, the Planning Commission may reduce the total number of spaces to a number deemed reasonable. Collective off-street parking shall not be located further than 100 feet from the nearest lot line of the lot on which the building or use is being served is located. So I don't know if that directly addresses it, but it is kind of being described as a collective use of that back area anyway. But then again, here this section doesn't It talks about the sum of spaces, but it doesn't keep in mind the exemption that C2A has. So I guess we're back to square one on that topic.
So the fence you're proposing is just an L shape from what would be my westerly residential neighboring lot corner, because there's already a picket fence there that runs on that first residential house. So from that northeast lot corner down to what would be flush with my alley and then back over to the building, is that your suggestion?
Well, I didn't, unfortunately, take some good pictures at that back, but what I would have to see is the condition of that fence. It would be the project's development responsibility for the screening. There is some screening that's existing that if it's serving the purpose of screening and its intent is doing the same, then oftentimes the planning commission will just leave that existing screening. But if it is just a picket fence, that would not be, the type of fencing that would be the solid barrier. So I guess I would have to see a little bit more about the existing fence.
Yeah, it's basically a brand new 6-foot dog ear fence, but the intention is to make it one continuous. Obviously, I'll have to get with all the neighbors through there and kind of coordinate that fence going in rather than just going and bulldozing something over. I know the one directly to my west is like new looking within the past couple of years. But like I said, it'd be nice to have one continuous look through the whole thing, but I'd obviously get on board with whatever specifications the city puts out for fencing, screening.
So was your suggestion to go from the north corner to that full-length gravel area? Or no, you still want to stop it short of?
My proposed fence line would come from my northwest corner down to what would be the southeast corner of that neighboring residential parcel on my west lot line.
Where the green stops?
Correct, yep.
In order for me to do so, I have to call that not the parking lot. So if there's agreement that that is not considered the parking lot,
I'm following.
but if it's part of the parking lot, it goes back to the 5 foot or the
2.5 foot with screening.
or the fence. Yep.
So if that screening wall extended 2.5 feet past that lot corner, that would meet the requirement then, correct?
Say that one more time.
So where the green currently stops on page 7 of my drawings, if that fence extended 2.5 feet further past to the south, that would give me my 2.5 foot setback with screening from parking area, or from commercial parking area to residential. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, I guess I would just want to be clear with maybe dimensions. And maybe I should pull this up, but let's see if we can get by without pulling it up. Yeah, so I guess the question still comes back about that drive going to the west.
I guess I'm not opposed to losing the drive. I just foresee that becoming an alleyway with a one-way entrance at some point here, or a trap space with a gate on both sides of a collection of leaves and trash.
Can you say that again?
If I were to fence off from the northwest corner of the building over to the adjacent commercial building to the west, I'm going to create a one-way alley there of just wasted space.
Why would it be a one-way alley?
Because I'm going to be putting a fence across there as you guys proposed.
Yeah, but you can approach from Salzburg, or you can approach from the parking lot. That doesn't make it a one-way alley.
I I guess we're on a different page right now. I'm saying if the fencing that you originally proposed along that southwest corner of my parking lot between my building and the neighboring vacuum building there, that is gonna create an alley between the west side of my building and the vacuum salesman to my left.
My original comment was to bring the decorative, or the screening fence from the northwest corner all the way to the back of the adjacent building, so there was no access from your property to the adjacent property.
See, I misunderstood.
Then also a fence between the fronts of both buildings, so there would be actually no access to the alley from Salzburg.
Gotcha.
But the second part of that wouldn't be required. That would be up to him. The only one that would be hypothetically required would be along the lot line. He wouldn't have to build a fence up to his building. He wouldn't have to do that.
You are correct. You wouldn't have to. It was one of the conditions we can put on it, though.
If we have no further questions specifically for the applicant on this item, we can discuss it during the business portion of our decision. Do we have any other questions pertinent to the applicant at this point?
Actually, I do. Do you know the dimension between your two buildings?
I'm not sure if it's listed on here or not. I could get it for you in a day. But
My thought was, you have a curb cut and access to it now. You know, would it make sense to move your trash there instead? You know what I'm saying?
I would really like to, but I foresee the issue of a blindsided back out of a trash truck on the Salzburg when that bridge reopens being near impossible. And talking about traffic issues or something, that would be for sure one of them. I'd sure like to, because like I said, that dumpster corral at my northwest corner cuts me out of 2 parking spaces on an already tight lot. But I went back and forth with my civil engineer a lot of times to come up with the parking layout we've got right now to commit to that. I'd say there's probably 12 feet, maybe 15 between that building. You can drive through it right now. There's window wells on the west side of this building that are gonna be infilled and everything, but it's big enough to get a full-size vehicle through, but it's tight.
I'm sorry, Mr. Spencer, is the green indicator light showing up on your microphone?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm
Okay,
just not speaking
all right.
into it.
No, my thought was more, yeah, I mean, if you were, yeah, it's true, you'd have to back up even if you could pull all the way in.
It's pretty narrow from what my observation over there looking at it today. I could probably have driven down it, but it would have been tight on either side of my vehicle. Terry, this Salzburg at this point is M13,
M84, yep.
M84.
Yep, with the detour.
So MDOT does have jurisdiction over.
They would, on that. The only thing I would note is that they did allow that drive to stay there when it was reconstructed. I don't know what they may or may not have known at the time. But yeah, this, as I had stated, it wasn't routed to them because all the access was coming off of Chilson, so I didn't believe anything was changing, and I thought that was just going to kind of be dead space.
Well, and with your original
Put it in.
intent of being able to get through that for the trash guy, I mean, I can't speak to it, but wouldn't that require pavement? I mean, that's a heavy truck, doesn't that require
Right
concrete?
up against the building.
Especially as that truck comes into the driveway. Some of this is shown as asphalt. I pour concrete myself, so some of it's gonna likely become concrete. Especially with a trash truck making 3-point turns, it'll tear that asphalt up in like 2 years probably. So the intention is kind of do it right once and put concrete down where that trash truck's gonna make a loop. If I say that trash truck came through the alley and loaded like we had talked about, he'd have to make one turn out versus using the entire parking lot and trashing all of my asphalt within a few years, but I'm here to meet your requirements.
So you're saying the alley is going to be the access to the dumpster?
I don't even know if it's feasible quite yet, because like the other chairman had said, it's tight. I mean, it was an idea I had today, especially with that dumpster having to move to the east to meet the setback requirements. It's going to be tight regardless how I do it. It'll be feasible, and it's kind of up to the trash guy to just figure it out. But I'm trying to make it as easy on everybody as possible now while I'm in the design stages of it.
I mean, but it's not a requirement of ours. I mean, that's something that they could do potentially, or decide later. I mean, right now they're proposing gravel, but there's nothing in our requirements that would stipulate that it had to be concrete. Now, whether MDOT or anybody else had something to say about it would be different, but.
Well, the drive currently is gravel.
Limited up to past the sidewalk, yeah. I mean, there's a,
So if the truck is going to be using that, the least I would expect is to have that alley paved.
Yeah, but we don't,
One way or another, which way the truck is going to go.
no, I hear that, but what I'm saying is we don't require that. That's not something that we have to stipulate.
We just went through this with hard surface parking. Would we consider the alley part of the parking in this case?
if one person
Since it's
parked,
an access?
if one person were to park in that alley, it'd limit the, there's,
Didn't read it as that, that it would be used for parking.
that
Had I
alley-
done that, I probably would have made sure that MDOT was gonna review this, but
the alley's not wide enough for parking in there. It'd have to be parallel parking through that space, and it's less than 18 feet wide through there, so there's not enough room for two vehicles to fit through that alley at the same time.
No, I understand, but you can get a car going through there from either direction at any time.
Right, but it wouldn't be considered parking, correct?
No, it's not parking, but it's an access drive
Right,
to your parking.
okay.
So that would be where I would say that would have to be paved as part of this development.
yep, and before that, I still would want to get MDOT's review on that. Yep, because I didn't interpret it as that.
Speaking of the asphalt, on your legend on the site plan sheet 3, you've got proposed HMA.
What is it? Hot mix asphalt, thank you.
Pardon?
It's just a construction lingo for asphalt, hot mix asphalt, they put it down hot. Is that what your question is? I'm sorry.
I was just wondering what HMA stood for. What material are we talking about? Hot something?
Blacktop, yeah, blacktop asphalt.
Blacktop, okay.
This is where we got in the discussion at the last meeting.
Right.
It is what we would recommend in terms of being in the ordinance to say hot mix.
How it would, hot mix, that's right. So this would actually have a base layer and then a.
Yeah, they come through, they
pouring
do a
course on
base
top.
course layer, and then they'll do a topping coat. It's normally an inch and a half over a 6-inch stone base.
Right? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the appellant?
I do have just one last comment, and then I'll end my site plan review. Is there any possibility, knowing the back of the building, to have parallel handicap parking in the back of the building, which would free up the 2 handicap parking spaces for a dumpster, but that would only work if there was still enough room and there was even some type of entrance that those 2 parking spaces would be providing. So just a thought or a comment.
My original intent was for the dumpster to go there. The couple things that I ran into was the wording of that ordinance says no dumpsters within front or side yard setbacks. That kind of falls within both of those. Not to mention, I kind of don't really want the trash can right next to the building on kind of one of the more attractive sides of the building.
You're making it so difficult for people to get to it, though.
The last thing I want people thinking about that when they walk into the place is the smelly trash can they just walk past.
So did we clarify what was in the proposed gravel, that little alley access from Salzburg? What is it right now?
Currently, it's just a gravel access drive between the buildings.
Any other questions? I will excuse you, but please stay around.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to make comment on the proposed site? Come forward to the podium, sign the register. State your name, and you'll have 5 minutes. Sheila will be our timekeeper.
Okay, my name is Rhonda Luby.
Hang on, make sure you pull that microphone down so that it's right in your face.
Okay, Rhonda Luby, 1904 South Jillison. I sent an email to you guys that kind of covers my concerns. What is my address?
We did receive a copy of the email that you submitted.
Yes, I think that covers most of my concerns. And if nobody reads it, Joel will read it for me.
Yeah, they're either going to take the time to read it and we'll allow that time, or I can read it myself, or you're welcome to read it. But either way, we'll allow the time to either review it and have everybody read it themselves, or I'll read it out loud. So if the members would like to take a few minutes and just please read the email, then it'll save me from reading it. Or would you like for me to read it?
Well, I've already read it, so.
Most of us have read it already. So it will be included with the record on this proceeding. So we will have a copy of this.
Okay, that has been a driveway for over 25 years when Mary Harder owned it. She had long-term renters before we came, and we came as renters, and she said, right here, this is your property line. It goes back to the garage. It angled back. And behind that, we still took care of the yard. So when we bought the house, we thought that's our property. We were paying rent on that property and thought we were paying taxes on that property.
How did you buy the property? Did you buy it through a land contract or?
After Mary was deceased, one of the
daughters, Maureen, the daughter,
one of the beneficiaries.
sold it to him.
So it was just an arm's length relationship and you had a quit claim deed done?
I'm sorry.
Did you have a quick claim deed done, or did she come and sign everything all over for you?
I don't remember.
Did you go
Went to
through a
lawyer,
realtor?
and we had the two sisters sign that it was okay for us to have it.
Sheila?
Did you go through a realtor, through a title company?
No, the daughter, Maureen, she had been staying with us too while Mary was in the convalescent. And then she decided she was going to go to Georgia, and she said, "You want to buy it?" And I said, "Yeah." We've been here for so long. So it's 25 years now that we've been taking care of the driveway, and
You still use the driveway now?
yes, I have all along.
Then when did the land bank acquire the property, I guess is the question.
Who?
The land bank, the 50 by 120 lot that is describing, or that area, I believe that was bought and purchased by from the land bank. So they had possession of that property, because it has 180-foot depth. And if you go from the front property line and measure back, you do come at the south end of your property line. So that is all that one parcel. I didn't look to see what year it may have been combined, to see if it was done after the land bank had owned it, or perhaps well before it was already combined, but legally, it is a lot that is assigned to 500 Salzburg. And I don't see any paperwork that says that that lot belonged to the 1904.
Well, I talked to Mr. Spencer. He's the one that showed me. And if he goes where he goes, I only got like,
2 foot or 2.5 foot from where the parking lot's gonna be to where her bedroom window is at, and that's what.
and no driveway.
And no driveway, so then she's gonna have to walk all the way around the fence, because the way that her,
It would be very difficult for me to park on the road. We
Right.
have a handicap ramp that goes right to a gate, that goes right to what we're calling our
where you see
driveway.
that car there in the picture, or at the house there, that gate comes right to there, so she does not have to walk any further than that. She has trouble walking over the stones or trying to get up and down on curbs.
So if it is this property, I'm asking, please let me keep it. At least to the back of the house.
We can have the parking spot right there, so she doesn't have to walk all the way around.
Unfortunately, we don't have that power.
Well, I'm asking Mr. Spencer.
I mean, I understand that you mowed the lawn, et cetera, but unless you notified the property owner of your intent to claim the property by adverse possession, you have no claim. So regardless of how long you maintained it or how long a driveway was there, it was still encroaching on the property.
Could I do an adverse possession?
No, you did not make notice of the neighbor that you were maintaining the property because you didn't even know it wasn't your property. Had you had a survey done and you knew where the property line was and you knew the driveway was over and you maintained that and let the neighbor know in 7 years this is going to be mine because I'm going to keep maintaining it, then you would have a claim for adverse possession.
So we're not going to have our parking lot.
That is, I mean, that's where the property line is. Whether you knew it or not, that's how it sits.
Come on, Mr. Spencer.
Time has expired. Does any commissioner wish to extend it?
I mean, the emails show us how disabled I am. When I have groceries and meds delivered, they come up through that driveway, through that gate, to bring me my groceries and my pharmaceutical stuff. And when I leave, medical taxis pull in so they can assist me if I need in or back out. And if it's medical taxi on the road, I don't know what we would do. I wouldn't be able to walk over the grass and get in a car.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We will take that into consideration.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to come forward and make comment on the appeal before us? Seeing no one come forward, I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved?
Motion by Commissioner Bonacek. Support. Support by Commissioner Burns. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll now move into our deliberation in the business portion of our hearing.
So Terry, you're saying the screening fence is going to come from the northwest corner to the south until it hits the property line of that residential property on the west side of the block, correct?
That is meeting the requirement for required screening that is adjacent to residential, correct?
And Mr. Kaufman can extend that through whatever green belt area exists currently if he feels necessary. It looks like there's about 5 foot of grass from that property line to the south. He was talking about 2.5 feet. I don't think it's required, but he can do whatever he wants on his own property.
So that's where the fence is going to go for the adjacent, where it's at the abutting the two properties.
So you want to give us a recap of what your discussion was there?
Well, the discussion is still along that west property line, and, you know, how far is the required screening versus just abutting an adjacent commercial property parking lot. It could be considered that, and that corner, I guess, that southwest corner wouldn't be described as part of the parking lot. And then if I took, say, 24 foot from that center roll of parking and I came down 24 foot, then I could also call that as the edge of that parking surface if I ran a line at 24 and went west. So there is, I can't quite read it, but there would be empty space there that would be paved that could not be called part of the parking lot.
Is the intent of the fence to provide a barrier to entry, or is it strictly for screening?
Well, for screening the residential, it is the screening, because if you have the 5 foot under the required screening, it does state that you have to plant arborvitaes to form a barrier at the time of planting.
And I'm not referring to the residential, I'm referring to the adjacent commercial.
Yep, so the adjacent commercial, the only standard that would come into play is the perimeter of an off-street parking area has to have a 5 foot green belt. So if we can agree where that green belt is no longer being required because it's not considered part of the parking area, the ordinance just simply states that at the perimeter of off-street parking areas, that a 5 foot green belt. If this is not the perimeter that we're down in the weeds about in this corner, I will take that. It's just typically it's the 5 foot that surrounds, you know, our typical parking. And there are exceptions as to where some of that 5 foot would be provided.
Well, it just strikes me that if we follow through and require fencing, it's going to be right up against the wall of the adjacent building, which begs the question of what's it actually doing?
The wall does not need to exist between two commercial lots, only a commercial and a residential.
Right, right. Yep. The only thing we're down to is just the screening of a parking lot and how to address this drive coming in off of
Right.
Salisbury.
So my next question was, is this drive then, if it's used as a drive, does it become part of the parking lot, or is it a separate thing in itself?
I have to always keep MDOT in mind, because they do ask that if there's any changes to drives. Now here, I thought I had justification for not having to send it to MDOT because that is recently all reconstructed. And again, I apologize, I did not think that that would continue serving as the surface, but now that I understand about the back parking, that does make sense. So again, MDOT did not get offered a review of this. I guess that's on me, but it was just how I read it.
Well,
Don't beat
isn't there
yourself
a
up
curb?
over it, Terry. Don's not going to say anything in this case because he allowed the drive 7 years ago.
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
The discussion is, as it is an access to that parking lot, should it be paved? And I would say yes.
And I would say yes, too.
And I would say yes.
And what was the discussion on the dumpster? Where did we end up on that?
We don't have a solution yet unless we take something to the Zoning Board of Appeals or get it worked out.
Is that something he's going to have to apply for a variance for?
Yeah, and as with any special use, you do have to approve the special use before any variance for a special use associated with that. So it would have to follow because this being a special use.
Sheila, you had a question?
I just wanted to note that the MDOT already there's already a curb cut there. So why does MDOT have to be involved?
Well, because we are changing the use of the building, and, well, we're changing the use by adding multiple family and the commercial elements to it.
What was in the upper floors before?
Office space.
And then something else.
I think it
Office
was,
space?
yeah, office space, I believe.
But it's zoned as general business, not office, right?
Right, but you can have
You can have dwelling units.
multiple
or-
family above, yep.
Well, C2A, isn't that allowed to have residents upstairs?
Right, yep, right.
I just wondered why, if it had living units up there before, why are we looking at it? But
I agree.
apparently we didn't have living area up there
Well,
before.
how do we know?
Yeah, how do we know?
So I don't know officially for sure.
Right.
Well, it could be, I would assume it could be researched through the assessor's office. Oh, yeah. Is it germane?
Is it relevant?
Yeah, I don't know
I
that.
think it's relevant.
No, because the reason it was brought tonight was the parking lot being in the R1 zoning. So the interior use of the building is a permitted right. So had it not been for the parking improvements, it would not have been required to be reviewed by the Planning Commission.
Let me ask this. What are we granting the special, which portion of this lot are we granting a special use to?
Parking lot.
Exactly.
The
Yep.
parking lot. So it's the R1 zoned portion of this lot, even though it's all one lot.
That's what brought it to this table, yes. Yep, was the fact that that parking lot, a portion of it was on that R1 residential zoning. And you have two choices at that point. You could either do a rezoning of that property, which in some communities that may be the only option. In our particular zoning ordinance, it is unique that you get to build a commercial parking lot in a residential area, but the ordinance does provide for that. And then it states that it's just a special use. So if you look at the zoning ordinance, upper 2 floors with commercial on the ground floor, that's a permitted use. So if the parking component wasn't being added, it would not have come before you.
Right.
I had a thought that might solve some problems, but it would be up to Mr. Spencer and then obviously the board, but might solve the trash problem and maybe the driveway problem. What, if you moved your trash over and flip-flopped it to the other corner, so you're still in the back of the parking lot, but you're just shifting it? So you'd still hypothetically have the same number of spaces. Could you bring that forward enough to leave it just green space behind it, screen the front of it from the road? You see what I'm saying? So run a fence on this side of it that faces the street so that it's not visible. It's far away from your building, but then leave green space behind it.
Could we have him come up to the mic?
Yeah,
I would say I can't hear
Mr.
you.
Spencer,
I'm
yeah, could you
sorry.
come back up to the mic, please?
That would fall back into the ordinance that we can't be in the side yard or the front yard. the- Originally, that dumpster, I wanted to put it where the two handicap spaces are currently drawn, but I fall back onto that ordinance of side yard or front yard. So the conversation that we're going towards tonight, I'm leaning towards the fence between what would be the southwest corner of my building and the southeast corner of the vacuum salesman building, running that fence there, closing that alley off, moving my dumpster to the northwest corner of my building right there. The northwest corner of my parking lot would then become one more parking space with a little additional green belt, and it eliminates basically all the need of everything we got going on. Make your lives easy.
So I'm sorry, just to say that one more time. You're talking about moving the dumpster to, yeah.
Would, Mr. Spencer, would you have any idea what you use that space between the two buildings for then?
Cornhole leagues, I don't know. Kids that throw baseballs in, I don't know. It's a dead space, no matter how we cut it.
There's no,
Cornhole.
A community garden? The city want to sponsor a
Cornhole.
community garden?
there's no entrance into the building?
Not off
That's
that west side,
that
no.
elevation?
Could you come over here and show me where you want to put that dumpster, just so
No.
I'm on the same page?
So quick question for you on that then. Would the paving be required between there, being that it's going to just basically be dead space? It's no longer parking or anything?
If nobody's accessing that alley for transiting, yeah, you're good. You put that fence up in front and you can put grass down and do whatever you want on the side.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't get it all.
My question was, if I close that fence, the southwest corner of that alley off, does that need to become paving then? And he had said no, pending that's no longer going to be driveway or parking space. It's going to just be
That'd be correct.
recreational area, basically.
That'd be correct. Yep. Okay, anybody else have a question for Mr. Spencer? I think we've done him pretty well.
Terry, hypothetically, could we just make a condition of the motion to have the new location of the trash administratively approved?
Yes, you may.
Now, you were talking about putting the fence out at the front of the buildings, correct?
Yeah, I might keep it back a couple feet, just
That's fine.
architecturally,
I
but
just
it'll,
want to make sure it's visible from the street so nobody tries to turn in.
yep.
Thank you.
But that particular fence, you're talking about across?
Correct, from the vacuum guy over to my building through that alley.
Yeah, we're not requiring that, correct?
But it would eliminate all the needs of everything we're,
I just mean the fence itself. I mean, yeah, trash, but I mean, the only screening that, I mean, other than what normally has to go around a dumpster.
Jersey block or something would qualify then, just
I'm
block.
sorry, can you,
Like a Jersey block or something would qualify, a big concrete block or something, is the way I read it. As long as that driveway's blocked, we're good. I intend to do a fence, but
If he's putting it behind the building, the screening requirements are kind of moot.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spencer. Anybody else have any other comments or issues or concerns?
I'd like to make a motion.
I would entertain one.
I move approval of, what was the number here? SU 26-01. Both the special use and the site plan. Is the proposed special use will not impair the public health, safety, or welfare. The proposed special use is appropriate for its proposed location and compatible with the character of surrounding land uses and uses permitting in the zoning district in which, actually zoning districts in which the surrounding property is located. The proposed special use complies with applicable zoning district regulations. The proposed special use complies with applicable standards for specific uses set forth in Article 21, Standards for Specific Uses. The location and design of the proposed special use minimizes any potential adverse effects of the use on adjacent property by avoiding significant adverse effects relating to parking, loading, delivery, storage, and service areas, odors, noise, and glare, vibration, and other potential nuisances. The location and design of driveways are safe in relation to streets, providing access to the use. Access to the use is designed to minimize conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians with traffic using adjacent streets and driveways. Vehicular circulation is designed to be safe and convenient. Off-street parking shall comply with the provisions of Article 17. Green belts, landscaping, and screening are provided in accordance with regulations of Article 18. Terry will make sure we get that administrative approval for any landscaping. Walls and fences comply with the provisions of Article 19. The fence along the west property line will be there to screen the residential properties, and a fence shall be erected between the applicant's building and the building to the west to prevent use of the drive that exists between the two buildings currently. Signs shall provide or shall comply with provisions of Article 20. Refuse receptacles are adequately screened from view from the street and from adjoining property. The trash receptacle shows a 5-foot setback, so there may be a variance required. We have discussed relocating it. That will be an administrative approval for its new location behind the building. All exterior lighting shall be designed and installed to comply with regulations of Section 12260 to result in minimal light trespass onto adjoining property and to avoid interference with the vision of motorists on adjoining streets. Once again, that will be an administrative approval once a matrix is provided so we can see what the lighting will look like. Access routes to all building structures and uses are provided for emergency service vehicles, and public utilities are provided in accordance with the regulations of the public utility providers. Stormwater management will be attended to by the engineer as the development progresses. You will need to make sure you have your stormwater issues all taken care of because you are adding impervious area to the site. Public utilities are provided in accordance with the regulations of public utility providers, and as I said, stormwater management shall be consistent with city, state, and federal regulations.
Are there any conditions that you want to enter in other than the trash receptacle?
Mr. Spencer happened to mention he would be happy to put the fence in between the buildings out on the Salzburg face, and we can make that a condition, I suppose, just to ensure that it happens.
Okay.
And staff would like to add one condition that the engineering review be given to us, and then also that any type of access permit would be issued by the engineering department.
I have no objection to adding that.
Okay, we have a motion with a condition from Commissioner Bonacek. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Sheila Turbot. Any comments, concerns, additions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, we will move on to case SPR 26-01, site plan review for 3880 Wilder Road. Atwell LLC, civil consultant is requesting site plan review for a 2,824 square foot motor vehicle filling station with a canopy covering 4 rows of pump islands. Motor vehicle filling stations are permitted use in the C2B Highway Business Zoning District. Someone from the applicant is standing here. Identify yourself, please, sign in the sheet, and
Yeah, Jim Coyle from Atwell, civil engineer, PE, State of Michigan. Per Terry's staff review comments in our meeting in December, including the city staff, fire, and Bay County Road Commission, it looks like there was no objections to our site plan, our layout, and it is an approved use in this district. And it was noted that it was before the Rite Aid, it was a fueling center before. So we're maintaining the points of access on Wilder as well as Henry, and maintaining all the setbacks for landscape building, canopy, and trash enclosure per the code.
can I ask what the reason was for going with a new structure versus using the existing one?
It's, the Murphy USA is a modular type 2B non-combustible typical building, so it's prototypically, operation-wise, this is the building that they put on sites throughout the country, and to remodel and tear down and repurpose the existing building operation-wise and, you know, just business-wise, doesn't make sense to them.
This is the Murphy associated with Walmart?
People will assume that, but no, it's a separate company. But yeah, Murphy Oil typically has gas stations within Walmart property or within Walmart parking lots, yes.
Okay.
But it's its own company.
So this is more of a corporate identity as opposed to anything else?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Well, this has been kicked around before. We already approved a different one, and there used to be a gas station many moons ago. The only comment I'd have is you are showing a WB50 truck.
Correct.
Your gas tanker is a WB65. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in terms of getting a truck around the site, just a caution so that you know when you come up against a different civil engineer he's watching.
Okay. Typically, we use WB50, but if that's a Michigan-related thing, I'll update it.
Thank you.
Question to staff. In the staff write-up under Part 2, second paragraph, parking spaces have been provided for the fueling pumps and the convenience store. The current zoning ordinance requires front yard setbacks of 20 feet has been met, and providing 35 parking spaces, meeting parking requirements.
Yeah, and the calculations, I believe, are also right on the site plan.
So during our meeting with staff, they considered the fueling positions at the pumps a parking spaces where, and that's when you add in the 16, then you'll get to the 35. Because there's 8 pumps, there'll be 16 parking spaces, one on each side of each multi-product dispenser. So that's 16 plus the spaces on the lot in front.
That can be considered transient parking, since somebody filling up might have to go in to pay or might go in to buy a Slurpee or whatever they sell there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would answer that question then. Thank you.
In your packet, you did also include the sign package. I did have a staff member look at that, and he stated that it would meet the signage requirements for a sign permit, so the signage information has been verified also.
So signage will be required by permit. It's not as though we have to approve the signage.
Correct, yep. A lot of time, well, the ordinance does require site plan review, the signage. Oftentimes, signage isn't known as they're going through site plan review, but in this case, they had submitted it, so we just included it as part of the packet that you received also. Yep, just to see it up on the canopy and that.
This was only a site plan review, so we're not having a public hearing on this, just so everybody is aware. Any other questions for the applicant? You please stick around, but you don't have to stand there anymore if you don't want.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Concerns, issues, questions of the commissioners?
Terry, in the staff report, it does mention that the landscaping still needed to be submitted for staff review and verification. Was that done?
Yep, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, on the landscaping, I know we had that prior landscaping for that other existing site, but what I'd like to see is what landscaping that is there could be kept, or is it going to be actually a clean slate? But, you know, has consideration been given to still maintain perhaps some of the existing landscaping, and then, but I would be looking at that on a landscaping plan.
But that can be handled administratively, correct?
Yeah, I can review that administratively. Yep, I
Chair,
can.
may he approach?
Is that a question for us? Yeah, we will prepare a full landscape plan. The intent is to maintain the parkway trees, and there is the screening up against the rear of the property. There is a fence, slatted fence, and some pretty thick landscaping there already. And the plan right now, given that the electric, as long as the electric doesn't impact that area, we would maintain all of that landscaping along the rear as it is today.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions or discussion. I would entertain a motion.
Anybody else want to make it?
Anybody? You're so good at it, Dennis.
I understand. Okay, I move approval of SPR 26-01. The use Proposed, comply with the applicable zoning district use and dimensional regulations. All elements of the site plan are harmoniously and efficiently organized in relation to size, shape, and character of the lot, the type and size of the proposed building, the location and layout of landscaping, and off-street parking areas, and the character of uses on the adjoining properties. The location design of driveways is safe in relation to streets, providing access to the site in relation to pedestrian traffic. Access to the site is designed to minimize conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians, with traffic using adjacent streets and driveways. Vehicular circulation on the site is designed to be safe and convenient. Safe and convenient pedestrian and bicycle access and circulation are provided by the sidewalk out front. Is there a sidewalk along Henry? I can't remember. I'm looking at the plan and they're showing one.
Yeah, it looks like there is.
I worked that corner as a lion on tag days, and I don't recall a sidewalk there. That's why I'm asking.
That's because you're in the middle of the road.
All right. Where was I? Off-street parking and loading areas comply with the provisions of Article 17. Greenbelts, landscaping, and screening shall be provided in accordance with the regulations of Article 18. Screening from adjacent uses is not a factor at this site, but you will have to get staff administrative approval for the landscaping when you present the plan. Walls and fences, if required, are provided in accordance with regulations of Article 19. There's no screening requirements because we're not abutting residential, but we did have that discussion just shortly. Signs shall comply with the provisions of the sign code. Sign permit will be required. Refuse receptacles are adequately screened from view from the street and adjoining property in accordance with the regulations of Section 122-66. All exterior lighting, building mounted and freestanding, shall be designed and installed to comply with the regulations of Section 122-60 to result in minimal light trespass onto adjoining property and to avoid interference with the vision of motorists on adjoining streets. Canopy lighting can be interesting in these kinds of situations, but administrative approval of lighting, once those full site plans or full plans are developed, will be forthcoming. Access routes to all building structures and uses are provided for emergency service vehicles. Public utilities are provided in accordance with the regulations of the public utility providers. Stormwater management is an issue for the city engineer. Looking at the site and understanding that the impervious area is probably going to be pretty close to what it is currently, there shouldn't be any stormwater requirements, but if there are through the engineer, they must be met. Department review and comments in Part 3 must be met. Part 3 is approval subject to a full site plan review based on a complete set of sealed construction drawings. I believe that was the only caveat there. And sign permits will be required. So I move approval.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Bonacek. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Whitney Anderson. Any other questions, concerns, comments, conditions? Speak now, forever hold your peace. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Congratulations.
I lost my agenda. I got too much paper.
Yep,
Got it. Terry? So we'll move on to staff update. Change for the date to February 18th for the zoning ordinance amendment review.
Yeah, so I did email Joe as we were approaching our deadline to get stuff out the door, and Joe had been tied up, or I guess busy, that he didn't think January was going to be the month that he would be able to meet, and he did state that he would be here in February. So we'll plan on that zoning ordinance review, and I can also let you know that the filing deadline has recently passed, and we do have two cases. One of them is going to be the Bay City Housing Commission project on Columbus Avenue, and the second case that was received was something on Marquette Street in addition to an existing building. So we do have 2 cases for next month. And let's see what else was on the update. The planning report. So it's that time of year where in January we first get a request from our director, because the city manager initially does kind of like an end of the year review in one of her January meetings. We put together that information, but then we have the more detailed annual report that it's a synopsis of what has transpired in the past year. Last year was, I believe, the first time that I specifically added the information about the redevelopment ready community because we're still working towards that process. As I was explained, we're still a small C, but we're very close to being a big C certified. So pretty soon we're going to get that capital certified designation and have that. I did look at many other communities' annual reports to see how some of them are meeting the Planning Act requirement, because in the Michigan Planning Act, it does require that an annual report be provided from the city or by the Planning Commission. The Act itself requires it, but then even under the redevelopment ready community, because we want to continue to be engaged with that, we'll look for other avenues. What I was, point I was going to come to was maybe in the future what we could do is even include this annual report as a looking forward report. So some of the things to have, on our radar for 2026, which in this particular case, we know we have the upcoming zoning ordinance that we'll have. We have been asked to do a couple of studies or involvement related to that zoning ordinance. So I would have to say that that will probably remain the number one priority, is getting through that zoning ordinance, which we'll be back into at next month's meeting.
What exactly goes into the report?
Well, basically it's a responsibility saying, here's the planning staff. I'll give you the one last year's copy. I was going to print these off for everybody because I was trying to think of who might have been new to the Planning Commission since this report went out, but I didn't get that far. But I do have a copy that I'll be willing to give to you. And basically, it's just explaining what the planning department is responsible for, some of our activities, because we do, more than just the 3 boards and commissions. We also involved in quite a few other things like the medical marijuana. The planning department tracks and monitors all those applications. It highlights the different career or committees that we attend, like the BCATS committee, the Downtown Development Authority, so kind of what staff is involved in. And then it's just a breakdown of here's how many cases we had and what they worked on during the year. We also, as part of this package, have the list of how many site plans, how many special uses we had, how many rezonings, how many were tabled, how many were approved, and then how many were postponed. And then we do that for the Planning Commission, and then for the Planning Department, this is where that carries into more of explaining the cases for the Historic District Commission, and then also explaining the cases for the Zoning Board of Appeals. So for a department, it's kind of our synopsis of the whole year for everything we're doing, but then with this added benefit, I guess we'll continue the dialogue as far as in the future, maybe just having the planning report that also meets anything that we would like to on the RRC side of things.
You discuss any enforcement actions?
Right now, we do not have the zoning enforcement officer position filled. That is a good point or observation that I will be doing some interviews in the next 2 weeks for the new zoning enforcement officer position being hired. It's the first time we've had that position since 2017. So, yeah, I guess we'd be looking at what type of zoning violations that the planning department is acting on.
That'd be a good blurb to put in for future, what's going to happen.
Yeah, because right now, code enforcement is assisting, and then with the extra staff they have right now, they've been having some of the code officials, do some of the zoning enforcement of, certain things. But when we get our position, some of that will transition back to our department. Yes.
Under the, you good?
Yep, I was just saying, good point.
Under the Planning Act, I note that we have the ability to make annual changes to the master plan, which, we're only required to review it every 5 years, but we do have an ability to make more often changes. Shouldn't we have some kind of a statement or something to the effect that at least gives a nod to that, and that we didn't have any need for a change to the master plan?
Yep, that's a good suggestion too. Yep, very good. Yeah, because one of the things that we do want to do in the master plan is not consider it done sitting on the shelf for the next 5 years. That's not the purpose of the master plan. So that suggestion would keep that in front of us, and then any adjustments that we need to make for that. So that would be a much value added to it.
Would the forebear to that be like, I don't know, I'm just pulling it out of nowhere, but like twice a year scheduling a discussion on whether we wanted to change it? We're saying, Doug's suggesting we make a comment that says we're not changing anything, but we've really never had that discussion. Should there be some sort of, I don't know, bi-yearly discussion? Just addressing the question?
Wouldn't hurt. I'd be amenable to having that put in as an agenda item, mid-year, just so we can get some kind of a sense of the commission as to whether we need to be looking toward making a change. Because as you know, I think not everybody here, but the last go-around was a go-around. Boy.
It was rather hefty, and I know that at the time, because some of us jumped on board real late to the party, that the thinking at the time when we passed it was this was kind of a living document that could be altered as needed, which is great, but if we're not revisiting it, at least every 6 months or a year, is it really? You know what I'm saying?
No, we should individually be paying attention to that and reviewing it on occasion.
I think we need to look at where we want to locate the data centers.
Locate the what?
Data center.
Data
Oh,
center.
Actually, that brings up a point I wanted to make. I don't know if all of you are aware, but the City Commission earlier this month voted to approve a resolution that was introduced by Mayor Gerard regarding data centers and making provisions in the zoning ordinance for data centers, one way or the other, and the gist of the resolution was that the city manager shall work with the planning commission, and since then, Dana's announced her retirement. So I don't know what that does to our working with the city manager on that. Terry, I'll throw that back in your court.
All right, well, thank you. I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is that resolution was passed along to Giffords and Webster's. So they did see that resolution. They began working on what I believe is going to be, I haven't heard officially, but it would be an amendment to the contract. And then it would just be a matter of, I haven't seen the official amendment or anything like that yet. It was kind of just being shared with Giffords Webster's. I believe, yeah, they have a price, and that was given to the city manager. So then I wasn't at last night's Tuesday night's city commission meeting. I don't know if there was anything that came of that topic at all, but I guess that's where we kind of stand with it, is that.
I suspect that it's not going to be real pertinent to the city because I can't see too many locations within the city that would be host to a large-scale data center. Although there are smaller data centers that could well impact us that we want to
I
make.
just ran into one at a church where they have a 5G tower in the belfry. And as part of AI, they're going to be upgrading to 6G at some point when they put the chips in our heads. And they'll have 2 cabinets in there, and that's considered a data center. So it can be that small, or it can be as big as 2 Meyer Thrifty Acres.
Well, and if it's that small, does it really impact us? I mean, that becomes something that the property is going to do without regard to. I can't imagine having a zoning ordinance that would be so restrictive that it would put those kinds of conditions on.
I think the big issue, it's not going to be water because we got plenty of water here. It's not like we're drawing water through a well out of an aquifer. But one of the things I would suggest, Harry, is that we get somebody from Light and Power to give us their input as far as power consumption.
Yep, that will all be part of the discussion, yep. Because I know there has been some other departments who have either spoke to the topic or had taken questions about it. So yeah, the basically Light and Power would be fully involved in that discussion.
There was a spot on TV5 yesterday, I think, about Frankenless Township having been contacted regarding data center possibilities. But yeah, it's something we need to be concerned about, and more so from the resources that are needed for the data centers and how it would impact the citizens here in Bay City. So.
Yeah, I seen
we'll look
that
forward.
comment too. My only quick thought on it is they had to pick the smallest township in Bay County to go to that approach. Because actually I did get a call from somebody who I'm familiar with, an attorney, and he was asking, the staff's view of what we might put together. And it was just my personal opinion, but I do know that he represents some of the townships, and he thought it would be helpful, any information that we gather during this study, or at least language, that there would be other municipalities that might look at it, but the only big difference is the township versus the city land availability.
We don't have a whole lot of farmland in the city limits.
Correct.
Well, and that's why I can't help but feel like it's a little silly to pay the consulting firm to spend time doing that when more than likely it's probably not going to come up, at least on not any kind of large scale. And I know that the commission,
Never say
wrote that, the planning department and, the city manager come up with something, but I mean, I can't help but feel like a little bit it's a waste of money.
never. Say never.
And that is the personal opinion of Ashley Meyer and does not reflect the planning department.
I only speak for me, always and forever.
Like a lot of the stuff that goes into zoning ordinances, it's going to be boilerplate probably.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be curious, but I mean, is it really necessary? Can't we just Google it ourselves?
Let's find out what the details are before we jump to conclusions. Just my brief and unsophisticated search that I did on data centers this last week, there are levels of data centers. There are levels and levels, and they go down to micro data centers. Not that that's going to be an issue, but you never know. So,
And keep in mind, just because it's not an issue today, as they miniaturize stuff, every, 2.5 years, it could become an issue. It might be to the point where we'll have a big enough footprint here. One of the locations I was thinking was Johnson Street, down by the bus barn. That would be a wonderful spot for one, but it wouldn't be very big. So we have to take a look at this stuff in terms of what's going to come down the line in the future, and even though we don't have a crystal ball, we got to do the best we can.
And it is important because as I had to take the questions about data centers, the zoning ordinance does describe them as data processing and computer centers, which is a permitted use in, those industrial zoning districts. So if anything, we do allow them, and if anything, we need to, develop some standards, some provisions. Should a certain size be a special use and a certain size be a permitted use? So there are a lot of, ideas that could be incorporated into a zoning amendment or zoning, text that I know the consultant is aware of because they've had to look at this themselves. But it would be a good time, and I do welcome it from the standpoint of now would be the time to incorporate that into the zoning ordinance.
that's not going to hold us up in terms of getting the overall zoning ordinance done, is it?
Let's hope not. Nope. No, I really don't believe it will. Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of anybody else, but I don't believe it will.
Well, and Terry, that kind of brings me to a question that I had with the scheduling change. It's still tentative whether I'll be here next meeting or not. My son may have something, and they don't like to tell us until the last minute. So it's super fun for scheduling. But anyway, so I may or may not be here. I know that originally it was supposed to be this meeting, and that's kind of what I was anticipating. But what portions of the ordinance are we sitting down with? And I know at one point we had talked about bringing people in on some of these meetings, but that doesn't seem to be happening. It seems like we're just getting everything after the fact. But I'd like to be involved in that discussion. And if I miss the one meeting that we talk about it, you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I think, your point is valid, and just taking into consideration that they weren't able to make the January meeting, knowing that we've got a pretty busy schedule in February, it might be suggested that we do a special meeting where we just come in and talk strictly about the ordinance. My concern when I heard that it had to be moved was that's the same meeting that I'm processing all the Housing Commission. And with the Housing Commission, I have applications for the special use, which is related to the development. Then I have application for a street vacation, which is Jefferson Street. And then I have something that doesn't involve the Planning Commission that I see so far, is a vacation of existing easements. Two of those I will be taking to the City Commission. One of them by way of a recommendation from the Planning Commission, which would be the street vacation. The alley vacation or release of easements, I've spent considerable time researching that. I do not see where it has come to the Planning Commission for releasing of easements, but I'm still researching that. But it does appear that even the ordinance speaks to vacation of right-of-ways, and then it provides the steps. It only has one section that talks about easements or release of easements. My record is so far showing me that my predecessor, and there's only been two of them, release of easements. One of them was for Uptown, so that one's probably more difficult to decipher. And then there was one other one, But so far in the records, I have not found, any formal action to release the easement. So I guess I still have work to do on that. But it is going to be a busy meeting with the Housing Commission doing their presentation. And then we've got the different right-of-way issues too.
We will have to have a discussion about the Housing Commission too, because I may have to recuse myself on that action. But we'll talk about that separately.
So Terry, that still doesn't quite answer my question of what's being covered hypothetically, if time allows, and is there going to be any other time to be involved in that discussion, or not during a band concert?
Yeah, let me circle back with the consultant. Actually, tomorrow is when we have our twice-a-month meeting with them. So tomorrow is going to be a meeting where staff will be joining them online. But yeah, that needs to be discussed, yeah. And then I'll have to get an answer back out by way of email, because I'll have to have the discussion with them tomorrow and then try to get a email out on that. And to try to quote which sections, I wasn't prepared for that when it was deferred, so I won't even attempt to try to guess which, all those section numbers that we did review. Yeah, because that's what he's got to work to get to me before I can get to you too.
Yeah, I mean, originally, I, was interested in being more a part of the upfront conversations. Now it seems like it's more of just review, and then, but if the conversation were to be had at the next meeting, I would hate for, everybody has this discussion and changes and yada, yada. They make those changes, and then the next meeting, I'm like, hey, what about this? Or, so at least via email, it would be easier to know what was going on, so I could at least give my input that way if need be, but without knowing what we're looking at, can't really do that.
The Planning Commission consider, doing a special meeting just where it is going to be the zoning ordinance, and separate it from this meeting. It's your desire. If you don't want to, then I won't even check into it, but I'm just trying to, forecast if quite a few people, because the last time we did the review for the Housing Commission, I remember this Chambers, a lot of people were interested in it. So I can't predict how long and what will happen with the public comment. And then keep in mind, I'm going to have a consultant, driving up from Detroit, kind of waiting in the wings. So maybe the best solution might be to put it on a special meeting of the Planning Commission. We're going to discuss the zoning ordinance, and that's all we're going to discuss.
Well, that and, I'm sorry, Doug, just that, and also I thought we were starting to get into more of the meat and potatoes of the conversations that might be a little bit more in-depth, a little more time-consuming.
Because it's more of a workshop type, atmosphere, and yeah.
Right, and the Housing Commission could, all by itself, consume a lot of time. So that could be a very long day if you try to put too much on it. So I would be amenable to that if rest of the commissioners.
Or Terry, that maybe this is a stupid question, and for the record, I'm not opposed to a special meeting if necessary, but is there a reason why we couldn't just wait till March?
Still need to get through this stuff. Yep, we're still, and it's a good time to, again, talk about, your concern, or at least get an answer about, your comments. So probably the sooner the better.
Besides, it's too cold to do anything else.
Got to stay indoors, might as well be here, right?
Is there anything else any commissioner wants to bring to the floor? I'm sorry.
Well, if we were, wouldn't we be scheduling it now, Terry?
Well, you'd have to be willing to let me work on some dates and get back with you, unless,
Okay.
yeah, we're going to have to do some kind of shared, whatever that thing is that everybody schedules meetings with, your availability. I might have to use that program, whatever it's called, I can't think of it, where everybody puts in what they're available, and then we'll come to a particular date that works for everybody.
Okay.
Do you know where we are on the appointments?
Yes, so did you get a chance to see the reply to the email that you sent me about that? Okay. Yeah, so there was a question about, we had the vacancies posted, and then, when were they being refilled? I did ask the city manager, based on Sheila's question to me, and in my email to her, the city manager, I had asked her, is it safe to assume that, maybe at the next city commission meeting, that we can get the reappointments done? And she said, yes, she would try. So it's on her desk. She's the one that processes those. And it is hopeful that at the next city commission meeting, those vacancies or reappointments, as I'd like to call them, are taken care of.
Okay, so
You both
those are
got-
those,
You both got your applications in?
I was going to say, Terry, those are the ones that are expiring in October, right? Or last October?
Correct.
Whatever.
That's the best I can decipher. Yeah, it goes back to October.
And yes, Doug, the answer to your question is yes.
Thank you. You serve until replaced, so
But the check is still in the mail.
I see our city commissioner is, liaison is here. Would you care to say anything tonight?
Hello, Laura Kubit. I'm the First Ward Commissioner, and I'm officially the liaison to the group, so I just wanted to make that announcement. And also, I want to be clear on my role and what I'm not allowed to do. So my current understanding is that I'm not allowed to talk at all, like not as a private citizen under public comment. I'm not part of your body, so I don't have an opportunity to say anything, which is like really hard for me. But I also want to be helpful. For example, you were just kind of discussing like, well, what did you talk about at the city commission? Like, I was there, I'm happy to give some insight or, give my interpretation of what happened regarding the data centers too. But I also don't want to misstep, and so I'm just very open to whatever you want from me, because, I do plan to come regularly. I would like this to be useful. I don't want to violate any rules on either this side or that side. But I think the point of a liaison is to, in some way, encourage communication. So however we need to do that, I'm all ears. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Terry, can you speak to how it's worked in the past for those of us who haven't seen a commissioner here since we've been here?
Since I've been on the planning commission, and I replaced Chris Gerard when he was on the planning commission, I don't think we haven't had a liaison that
Anybody
actually showed up.
witnessed it in the house? Anybody?
Yeah, and then Commissioner DeWitt was appointed as the liaison, but then, 3 months or so in, he changed it, and then Laura was appointed.
So if she's not allowed to speak, so to speak, I mean, what is that relationship supposed to look like?
Well, there's some debate on that yet. If you look at some of the material that MAP has put out regarding suggested bylaws of planning commissions and ZBAs, liaisons are talked about, as well as members who are members of the body, as well as members of the appointing authority, which I didn't know such a thing could even exist, but it's in the MAP material, so I want to pursue that a little bit more and find out just what the ramifications are.
I've been to several different municipalities, the meetings, and sometimes the liaison is a trustee or a commissioner. They come over and they serve on the planning commission as well.
As ex officio or as an actual member?
They
Actual member,
participate.
yeah, so it's,
Others, it's just, in terms of what Miss Kubit, would be doing. It would be taking information she gathered from our meetings back to the commission, or consulting with Terry if there was something that the commission was curious about in planning.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that's, I'm just saying that's how I've seen it work.
right. So,
It seems like there has to be a middle ground between say nothing and sit on the board. But
but we're gonna explore that some more, find out where we can go. Terry, you had one more comment?
Yep, one last point is I know tomorrow morning my phone, or I'll be using the phone, regarding the decision in the adjacent property owner. It moved forward as it should. I know that the adjacent property owner has a lot of, I guess, being brought to her attention that she wasn't aware of. I did have to kind of manage, okay, how am I going to manage a comment like this? I did reach out to Neil Spencer, had sent him a copy of the comments that we received as part of public comment, because it is something that, you know, what can be known prior to the meeting that could help. So I did it. I sent that to Neil to let him see it. And then I then called him and asked him what his opinion was. His opinion was it was private property that he had purchased from the land bank, understood the dilemma, but really didn't offer an immediate solution. It wasn't my place to, you know, share what should or shouldn't be done. I do have a little bit of experience from some other property that happened to this past year. It didn't involve the Planning Commission, but was it the ZBA? Yeah, I think even the ZBA had heard it. But it had to do with a very similar situation where on one side was a private piece of property that somebody had used over the years and just took for granted that, you know, it would be there. Well, when the new property owner purchased the property, they informed the adjacent property that, you know, no longer would have access. Well, that other property owner did have to go to court. They went to court, and the judgment was for the property owner to say, yes, you can restrict access to that parking. The engineering department became involved because then it was all a question of where would the new curb cut go, and in this particular example that I'm using, they already had a driveway. The way I see this one unfolding is I'm going to be working with the engineering department, and my instinct is going to say that based on what they've done before, she's going to have to close that curb. That curb cut will be closed, and then she would have to put one in on the north side of the property, which is the same dilemma that, you know, the other example that I used. It's a bad situation, but again, without ownership of that property and then assumptions being made over the years that, you know, I either have that or it's something, when it comes factually, you know, that's not the case. And I will have to spend some time talking to her and working through whatever I can to help her out. But, you know, I just wanted to kind of share that because I do know that it's going to be important for me to kind of follow up with the public comment tomorrow.
Would she have standing to file an appeal with the ZBA for an action that we've taken?
You know, I'm not an attorney, so I always hate to answer that one. And sometimes that's what it really does come down to, is somebody actually taking the step to before finding out that yes or no, you can or can't do it.
Right. I'm just thinking in terms of, I've got my lawyer hat on, even though I'm not one, that if she attempted to go to court to block this action, a judge might throw it back in her and say, well, you haven't exhausted your administrative remedies, which could be an appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals, because technically the ZBA can act on administrative or decisions by the planning commission, so.
Right, yep, you're exactly right. And in a fresh morning with fresh mind, I would have thought of that. Because that would be the case, is that I could, inform her that, you could appeal the decision of the planning commission to the zoning board of appeals because it is a decision of a body. So yeah, that would be correct.
Does she have standing for that as not being the property owner of the
No,
actual property?
she's the property owner of the property that will be harmed. I mean, harmed standpoint that she's going to lose access to a drive that she's had for 25 years or longer.
But she didn't have legal standing. And she got her property through a quitclaim deed, not a warranty deed. She
Understood.
didn't go through attorneys or anything like that. And I can tell you from experience, she won't have standing in the court.
And that may well be the case. But at that point, well, I don't know. I'm not going to get into the legal weeds.
Well, I bought property that the previous owner had a similar situation where the properties used to be joined and then they split them up, and the residential property owner had built their deck onto the property of the new property that I ended up buying. But the courts made them tear down the deck. That was part of their porch, and they had no standing at all.
I'm also dealing with this with my property, so she has no standing because she doesn't own the property. Unfortunately, that's just that's how it will work out. But this is a hypothetical that really doesn't have any bearing on.
I mean, the sensical solution, if all parties were amenable, it would be for her to purchase X amount of feet. As I said, if they were amenable to doing that, and then he would just shrink his parking lot 5 feet or whatever. But, I mean, all parties would have to want to do that and be willing to do that.
You'd have to come up with some kind of a mutually beneficial or mutually agreed upon course of action. And
Right.
Mr. Spencer sounded like he's really concerned about having enough space. He's already deficient in parking. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that they had an exemption from parking requirements, we'd be having a whole different discussion, because that property would be way underserved in terms of the parking that it needs.
I agree, but the more limiting space is really your other dimension. I mean, Dennis is the civil engineer, and I don't know what that space is, but it's really that, the smaller dimension that's restricting. I mean, you could probably shave a few feet. But again, that would be if it was possible and if both parties were willing, which is probably unlikely, so.
Terry, do they still allow paving of the area between the sidewalk and the back of curb for parking? Do they still allow paving the area between the sidewalk and the back of curb to allow for parking in that front outlawn area?
No.
'Cause I know they used to.
Yeah, no.
They've been removing it where they can.
Yeah, the trend is to remove that adjacent paved area, parking in that outlawn area, correct.
Okay, I was just thinking that could have been a solution.
Yeah, there's a trend that's what is being eliminated, yeah.
Okay, if there are no further comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion from Commissioner Bonacek and second by Commissioner Turbot. We are adjourned.